Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to our best chess games of all time series. So in this series we're following the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show you an immortal chess game played by the legendary Bobby Fischer. This game was played in 1956 against Donald Byrne. Donald Byrne played this game with the white pieces, Bobby played with the black pieces. And here Bobby Fischer was only 13 years old, which is an incredible thing. He played that game really aggressively. He played really in attacking brilliancy against a strong master from the USA. And after this game, I think Bobby Fischer became really popular. This game launched him really into orbits, and this game is in many chess books and also in many chess sites. It's named this game of the century, and it deserves to have this kind of a title because you see why. And this game you suggested me also many times on my YouTube chess channel, so of course I wanted to cover this game. But as I said, there are really many games in chess history, but this game is, I think, among the top 10 in chess history, and be prepared, we have some wild tactics by the legendary Bobby. So let's check out. Here we have knight to f3 played by Donald Byrne, knight to f6, c4 the English opening, but this game will transpose into another line. The English won't be played here in the game. After knight to c3, bishop to g7 played by Fischer, and now after d4, so far we have the King's Indian, but after castling and the bishop to f4 we have the Hungarian variation of the King's Indian. Now the best way is to proceed here, I think, with the move d5 like Bobby Fischer did, because the activity of this bishop is the main idea of White's. White wants to close then here the center with the move e3 and then continue with bishop at e2. This, if you don't play this opening passive, I think White has sort of an improved London system. If you're familiar with the London system, basically you don't play this move c4 in the London system. You play something like a c3, keeping the position on the queen side compact, but you have out you have a good activity with your dark square bishop. But here in this Hungarian variation, you have a great space control already and a good central control with your knight. So if you play something passive, I think here like d6, you could have problems in the continuation of the game. So my recommendation is to play the move d5 like Bobby did in the game, and it is sort of a Grunfeld setup of blacks here. Most of the times we're trying also to crack the position with the move c5, because there is one problem in White's position. I've played many times from Black's perspective against this setup, and the problem for White is that you need one move, bishop to e2, and then castling. You need at least 3 more moves in order to secure the king. So now Black is trying to open the center with moves as d5 c5 to not allow here White to castle, or at least to paralyze some of these pieces. In the game, queen to b3 was played by Donald Byrne, and here Bobby Fischer simply took. There is also a line you could try, but be careful. You have to know, I think, the next continuation. There is this line also to proceed with the move c5, which is an aggressive way, opening the center, as I said. After the move d takes c4, queen takes c4 was played, and here Bobby played the move c6. I also like, I played this move bishop to e6 many times, because there is this line you should, I think, also memorize. After queen to b5, you shouldn't protect your b7 pawn. You can simply proceed with knight to c6, and here after something like e3 has to be played. Now we could, I think play something like rook to b or a6 b5, kicking away the queen. But the problem is, if you, for instance, take out the pawn here on b7, then we can take out knight to d4, and I won one particular game in this setup here. After something like, I don't know, bishop to c7, you get knight to c2, checkmate. So this is a tricky line, but it's bishop to e6. Okay, but this didn't happen. I just wanted to show you this particular line. In the game, Bobby played a more calm setup with the move c6, if the position allows it, with preparations to play maybe even b5. But it has to be prepared, because then you're leaving a backward pawn, the pawn on here at c6. In the game, e4 played by Donald Byrne, and now Bobby played a common move, knight from b to d7, and now rook to d1, which is a good move. You see how White has a good development with these 2 knights out, with the queen out, with the with the bishop aiming on a very active diagonal. Still, you need 2 more moves to castle. That's the main problem here, as I said, in these setups. In the game, knight to b6 played by Bobby, and now we have queen to c5. And I think here queen to b3 is a better line for white. After something like bishop to e6, I think we can go simply queen to c2, securing our king, and hang on to our pawn central control, which we have gained. This pawn central control is very important because we have these 2 centralized pawns which are controlling the center. So I think this would be a better line. In the game, queen to c5 was played. Still common theory, nothing is lost here, but you see the problems about the queen on c5. The queen is a little bit on a weird square, it's endangered, it's an object of black's attack. In the game now, bishop to g4 was played by Bobby Fischer. The idea behind this move is to take out this knight and then maybe attack the d4 weakness. So this is now also good activity of black's pieces. So we have now good activities by both sides. So this will be really an open and wild game. In the game, bishop to g5 played by Donald Byrne. And let's go back. When we start to study chess, then one of the main principles of a chess game is not to play with the same piece in the opening twice. At least if you don't have to. Sometimes you get challenged, but then you play twice with your piece. But this bishop to g5 move doesn't do anything basically, and you see this should be, I think, in chess books written, because this example, this bishop to g5, shows really the problems of development. And here Bobby Fischer uses this moment immediately. This was really a weird move by Donald Byrne. He should have proceeded probably with bishop to e2 and then castling. That's the main problem, as I said, of this Hungarian variation. You don't want to lose tempos. You have to get out with your king. You have to get out of this tactical mess. And here bishop to g5 was played by Donald Byrne, and Bobby Fischer uses this moment immediately and plays one of the best attacks in chess history. You can pause the video and try to find the best next move. It's really hard to see. If you don't see, don't be mad, don't be sad. It's just sort of a Fischer move. Only the best players can see such moves. And here Bobby Fischer decided to play knight to a4. Incredible move, because you're giving up your knight, but you can take out this centralized pawn. And the main problem, as I said, is still this king in the center position. So if the position on the e-file clears, then we would have a dangerous attack against white's king. Still, as I'm pointing you out, white needs at least 2 more moves to castle. Here the queen to a3 was played by Donald Byrne. But let's see the possible continuations. If you take knight takes a4, then you get this knight takes e4 idea. You have to do something with your queen. If you play queen takes e7, it seems like a natural move, but it's really a mistake, because we can simply play queen to a5. And now there are several choices. Either we can go here b4, or we can play the move knight to c3. Let's see the possible move b4. Then we have simply queen takes a4. If you take here the knight on e4, then we have rook to e8. You see the problems on the e-file. Now bishop to e7 would be the continuation, but now bishop takes f3. After g takes f3, bishop to f8, and I think this is game over, because in the next move we can simply take out the bishop. And with this weak pawn structures, white king is still endangered. So I think this would be a lost game for white. This is too much of activity here. The king is endangered. This bishop is a little bit passive, so this is not a good continuation. So let's see the possible continuation. Instead of this move queen to e7, what if you play something like bishop to e7? It seems also like a dangerous move. Then we have knight takes c5, we have bishop takes d8, knight takes a4, and now we have bishop to g5 getting back. But now we can simply take again this knight. As I said, this is the main positional motif that Bobby Fischer has prepared here. After g takes f3, we have again a weakened pawn structure, although white has the bishop pair, but still this is a weakness, this is a weakness, this knight on this pawn on f3 is a weakness. So there are too many pawn islands that could be really an object of black's attack. In the game you should probably play something like knight takes b2, after rook to d2, simply knight to f4, cementing our knight and still attacking this main problem in white's position, the pawn on d4. So there is also this line after the move knight takes a4, and if you, for instance, play this move knight to e4, queen to e7, after queen to a5, knight on c3 could be idea of whites, but again, knight takes c3, not a problem. Here b takes c3, and now simply rook to e8, and again trap the queen. So Donald Byrne sensed these tactical problems, so after the move knight to a4, great move that Bobby Fischer has found here, he played the move queen to a3, and Bobby Fischer again realized that there are these problems on the e-file, that there are these tactical problems, so he played, of course, knight takes c3, here b takes c3, and now knight to e4. This was the main idea of Bobby Fischer's anyway. This e7 weakness is not a problem, because we want white to take this pawn on e7, because we want to open the e-file. And in the game here, Donald Byrne played bishop takes e7, not a problem, because we have queen to b6, and in the game was played bishop to c4, trying to activate the bishop, but you see how late this move is. Now Donald Byrne wants to desperately castle and secure the king, but it's too late. But I wanted to show you also some possible continuations. If you take, for instance, bishop takes f8, then we have simply bishop takes f8. If you try queen to b3 to release the pressure, to simplify the position, I think we can simply play the move rook to e8 and allow white to take the queen, because this knight activity is too much to handle, and the rook's activity on the e-file. Here queen takes b6 would be a possible continuation after a takes b6, here bishop to e2, but now knight takes c3. You cannot castle again. You see how bad this position is. You could try maybe something like rook to d2, but now bishop to b4 I think is a good move. You would be forced to play something like king to f1. Again, you cannot activate the rook, and I think again black has a comfortable game. So you see, this is not a possibility. After the move queen to b6, Donald Byrne didn't take. He didn't dare to take out the rook. This would be really, really dangerous, and Fischer of course calculated all of that. After the move bishop to c4, now comes knight takes c3, and you cannot take here if after queen to c3, here rook from f to e8 would be the continuation. Again, you lose the bishop. If you castle, I think we can simply take, and we are continuing now the game with the bishop pair. And still there is this tactical problem of this move c5, because your queen is a little bit on a very, very nasty diagonal here, and you could lose the queen after potential c5 moves. Still, bishop takes on f3 is the possibility. Then again, get rid of our defender and maybe grab then after the d4 pawn. So again, I don't think this would be a good continuation. So after the move knight to c3, bishop to c5 was played by Donald Byrne, and now it's this Bobby Fischer was really not normal. What he played now is really amazing. Again, try to pause the video and find the best next move. You probably guessed that he will sacrifice the queen, but what's the best continuation? That's the main problem here, and really great attack by the 13-year-old Bobby. He played the move bishop rook to e8 first, pardon me, and here after bishop king to f1 we have a very nice move bishop to e6. That's the main tactical threat. So let's see what happens if you, for instance, take out the bishop. Okay, we don't want to take the queen. Then you get queen to g5, queen to b5, attacking the king, and you have now this so-called checkmate pattern. We will have this smothered mate. And what to do here? You have only king to g1, we have knight to e2, you have again king to f1, we have knight to g3. If you go, of course, king to e1, then you get checkmated on e2. So again, you have to play king to g1, and now queen to f1, rook takes f1, and now knight to e2. Very cool checkmate would be possible here. So that's why Donald Byrne didn't fall for this, and he took out the queen. So he didn't take the bishop, but now we can take here the bishop on c4. There is also this line. If you take now this knight on c3, then we can play simply queen takes c5. Again, you cannot take the queen because you lose also your queen, and you cannot take the bishop because you simply lose the queen on c3 because this bishop is pinned also by the queen. So you could maybe d takes c5, but now again bishop takes c3, you have to take, and now after rook takes e6, again I think black has a better game. We're pawn up, we have bishop versus knight, so this will be, I think, a good game for black. So that's why in the game bishop takes b6 was played, taking out the queen, but now bishop takes c4 played by Bobby Fischer. You have only one square, you have the square g1, knight to e2 attacking the king. Here we have king to f1, and now knight takes d4. We have sort of a windmill chess tactic now. The king can only hope here to play this perpetual check moves, and here Donald Byrne only can hope for a draw. After king to g1 we have knight to e2, king to f1, and now knight to c3. Very important move to grab the rook now. After king to g1 we have a takes b6 first, attacking the queen. After queen to b4, now Bobby continues to attack. Here we have rook to a4, attacking the queen. You cannot take the knight, again you get some because the knight is protected. You basically only have one good square. You can take the pawn on b6 like Donald Byrne did, but now simply knight takes d1, and this is basically a lost game for Donald Byrne. He has lost too much of material. Here Bobby Fischer has a rook and two minor pieces for the queen, but the activity of these pieces is uncomparable. This rook hasn't participated at all in the game. This knight is passive. This rook's activity is too much to handle. Here we can also try rook to a2, rook to a1, then knight to c3, even checkmate threats on the first rank. So h3 was played by Donald Byrne, trying to create some kind of breathing space, but now rook to a2. The next moves are really easy to find. You have a good activity, you don't have an endangered king, so this is perfectly fine. King to h2 was played, and now knight takes f2. You see Donald Byrne loses even more material. Here rook to e1 was played, rook takes e1, knight queen to d8, attacking the king, bishop to f8, not a problem, and now knight takes e1. But again, this is losing simply for black. You see there are only 2 pawns in front of white's king. Bishop to d5, simply improving the position of the bishop. Knight to f3, and now knight to e4. You see Bobby Fischer is keeping the pieces glued together. He is keeping the pieces compact, not allowing Donald Byrne to get some material back. And now after queen to b8 we have b5. Here we don't want to lose even a pawn, so now everything is perfectly fine, everything is connected, and now it's time to simply push pawns or attack this g2 weakness. So in the game h4 was played, h5, very good move, knight to e5, and now king to g7, improving of the position of the king. Now the idea is of course to play something like bishop to d6. In the game here king to g1 was played, but now bishop to c5 anyway, and we have now a very tricky mating net here that Bobby Fischer has prepared. Here king to f1 was played, but now Bobby Fischer simply continues to attack. You have only one square, you have the square e1. King to e1 was played, now again a check. Again you have only one square, king to d1 was played. Now this bishop comes into the game, bishop to b3, king to c1, knight to e2. You have again only one square. We have king to b1, but now knight to c3, king to c1, and now rook to c2, and it was game over. Great attack by the legendary Bobby. This was an incredible game, I think, sacrificing first this knight on a4, creating this knight on e4 tactics, opening the position, activating all of the pieces, sacrificing the queen for the initiative. Great game. As I said, this game is named the game of the century, and it deserves really to have this name. This was really incredible game played by legendary Bobby, and deserves of course to be on our list of the best chess games of all time. If you want to see more games like this, check out my other games from this series, some other best chess games of all time. Here's the link. And you can also watch my other commented chess games played by computers, by AlphaZero, Lila0, Stockfish, and many more. You can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.